Hello class 12. Welcome to the online tutorial sessions for economics. I am Avinash Lambert, your economics guru, and today we are going to continue our fourth chapter, which is money and banking. In today's lecture we are going to learn about the central bank. Now, central bank is an apex institution, means the head institution which deals other commercial banks. If commercial banks are the sons, then central bank is the grandpa of their son. Now, central bank is an apex institution of monetary and banking system. It deals with all the commercial banks. It is the head of all the monetary institutions and banking system of our country. In India, Reserve Bank of India, RBI, is the central bank. Now, the most important topic of this chapter is functions of RBI. In these 6 functions, in the board exams, there 1 or 2 are always asked. So let's start with the functions of RBI. First function is currency authority function. That is the first function and the major function. This function is also termed as bank of issue. Now, what they issue? They issue currency. For example, in India, rupees is your currency. Now they will issue, they will produce, they will manufacture the currency notes and coins. Now, every central bank in the world has the sole authority. It is the only institution that issues the currency in the country. Now, the currency issued by central bank is unlimited legal tender. That could be in the amount of unlimited numbers. They can produce unlimited legal tender. Legal tender means the currency and coins. Now, the central bank issues currency. Now, they issue the currency by keeping a reserve in the form of gold and foreign currency. Suppose they are having the gold of worth rupees 1 lakh rupees. Now they will keep the gold as the reserve of 1 lakh rupees, and now they will issue the 1 lakh currency notes and coins. So while by keeping the worth of 1 lakh rupees with themselves in the form of gold or dollars, then they are going to manufacture, issue the currency and coins of worth rupees exactly 1 lakh. Now this is the first function, which is currency authority functions. Now students, the second one is custodian of national reserve of international currency. So this is the briefcase. There is a briefcase in the RBI, and in that briefcase they put all the international currency like euro, dollar, pound, sterling, yuan, and all the other world's currency in their reserve. So that briefcase is basically the reserve, and it maintains the reserve of international currency. They maintain the reserve. They keep a reserve of the foreign currency in the form of gold or foreign exchange. Foreign exchange means foreign currencies. So they keep a reserve. They collect the foreign currency, international currency. Now let's come to the third, which is banker to the government. Now students, this function is the most important function from all these functions of central bank. This function has been asked many times, several times in the board exam, including this year's 2019-2020 board exam. So understand it very carefully. RBI acts as government's agent, banker and advisor. So RBI acts as 3 things: agent, banker, advisor of the government. Now let's understand all these 3 things which the central bank performs for the government. Let's start with the advisor. Now the RBI advises the government. What? They advise the government regarding economic policies decision. How much money to be given to the laborers, how much money to be invested in the agriculture, in the industrial sector. So they basically help They basically advise the government in making the economic policies. Second one, as a banker, just like the commercial bank helps the people in depositing their money and granting them loans, just like that the RBI performs the same for government, which a commercial bank performs for its customer. For example, depositing their money. The government deposits its money in the RBI and the RBI grants the government loans. So that is the banker function of the government. Now, the third one, the agent. Agent function means the RBI performs various agency functions to the government like transfer of funds, selling and purchase of securities. The government also transfers its funds to different countries, to different central banks of other nations, and they purchase and sell the securities for the government. So basically they act as agent also. They perform some agency functions. So that are the three functions that the bank perform to the government as advisor, banker and agent. Now it's time for the fourth function of central bank, which is banker's bank and supervisor. As I told you, if all the commercial banks are the sons, then central bank is their grandpa. Like when children in the house, they just mismanage things, they are running here and there and doing all the stuff they want to do, then there is one grandpa in the house who manages them, who supervises them, who tells them not to do that, not to do that. Just sit here and do whatever I am saying. So just like that, the central bank manages and supervises all the commercial banks. Now, RBI regulates and supervises the proper functioning of all commercial banks. RBI regulates and supervises. They tell all the commercial banks to work just like we have prescribed you in the guidelines, and they also check them whether they are performing the guidelines or not. Central banks accept deposits and provides loan to the commercial banks, and the central bank also collects their deposits of the commercial bank, and they also give loans to the government, and they give loan to the commercial banks too. So that's your banker's bank and supervisor. When the commercial banks need some money, then they come to the central bank for having some loans. We as people, we go to the commercial bank for having some loans, and the commercial bank goes to the central bank for having some loans. So that's your banker's bank and supervisor function. Let's come to the fifth one, which is clearinghouse function. Now, RBI provides clearing facilities and acts as clearing house. In the banking system of a country, it acts as a clearing house. Now, clearing house, let's understand it. Suppose there is some person who needs to give some payments in the account of his friend, whose account is in Axis Bank, but this person's account is in PNB. Then what he will do? He'll just draw a check and it will be sent to the Axis Bank. Now, what Axis Bank will do? There are basically 2 or 3 days in which the PNB will send that money to the Axis Bank, and there might be other people also. Suppose there is one person who is doing the transaction from SBI to Axis. Now Axis will also do some transaction to Aryavrat Bank, or Aryavrat will do some transaction in the PNB, then again PNB to SBI, again PNB to Axis, Aryavrat to SBI, Axis to PNB, and there are so many banks in our country whose checks are going to from one bank to another bank. Now, in this scenario, in this mess, in this lots of disturbance, in this lots of confusion, the RBI comes up as the clearing house. RBI clears all the checks of the commercial banks. When these banks fight with themselves, then RBI comes forward and they clear all the checks. So RBI helps them in clearing all the checks so that each and every banks get the proper amount and they don't cheat and they do not miss anyone's money. So that's why while sending the check, there are almost 2 or 3 days before the amount clears. Now the last point is lender of the last resort. Now when commercial banks fails to meet the financial requirement, suppose the commercial bank to give the loans or some withdrawal money to the customers and they don't have such amount, then in that case they can approach central banks for the loans and advances. Suppose the Punjab National Bank needs 5 crore rupees. Now they don't have any source from where they can arrange 5 crore rupees. Then they will approach to the RBI, the Central Bank of India, and they will ask for the loans and some money in advance. So there's the lender of the last resort. With the help of RBI in the emergency situation, that can be easily tackled by commercial bank. So whenever the commercial banks are in emergency, they are in need of some urgency, they need some money in a shorter period of time, so they ask the central bank for the loans and advances so that they can escape out from the emergency situation. So basically the central bank helps the commercial bank in these bad scenarios. Now there is one more function which is credit control. In the previous video you have studied about the credit creation by the commercial banks. So it's an irony where commercial banks are creating money and the RBI is controlling that creation of money. They are controlling that people don't have so much amount of money. So the commercial bank can control the limit of giving the loans to the people. Now basically credit control means it controls the money supply in the country, the total amount of money which is held by the people, that is the money supply. So they control the money supply in the country so that people don't have much amount of money with them. So and how they control the credit creation, how they control the credit control, this will be taught in the next video. Basically there are two types of measures, qualitative and quantitative, which we will discuss in the next video. So students, that's all for this video. Let's take a screenshot, take a very neat and clean screenshot so that you can complete your notes. Fine. Now I hope you have taken the screenshots. That's all for today. See you soon.